Well, first, I'd like to thank you all for having us here today and congratulate the Shibaura team on 50 years of success. Looking forward to what's to come. As mentioned, really the goal of this panel is to discuss both the economic as well as the operational benefits of transitioning to an electric press and what that means from a sustainability perspective. Before we get into the questions for the panel here, I'd just like to start from an overall market. So at Plant Moran, we spend a lot of our time within the supply base, predominantly focused in the automotive landscape. So historically, when you think about sourcing decisions, it's your common QCD, quality, cost, delivery. But through a lot of our work as of recent, we've really seen a strong uptick in the sustainability requirements of the automotive OEMs. And they're going to the extremes of if you don't achieve their threshold through the various rating agencies, ultimately you're no longer on the sourcing list. So I think there's there's various inputs that go into their sustainability scoring, but ultimately sustainable manufacturing processes will play an important part of that. So really looking forward to the conversation today, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us. For the first area of conversation, really focusing on the economics of an electric press, and more particularly around the business case assessment for choosing an electric press over a servo hydraulic. So I'd like to start, in today's capital-constrained environment, obviously high interest rates, demand is down. How are you justifying an investment into a new electric press? Daryl, let's start with you.
Well, right now we're not getting any new machines yet. We're looking at that very, very soon, though. We have projects in the works all the time. We have all of our molding machines are electric except for two. We have two hydraulics. I don't know if we do a lot of studies as far as like what we're going to choose, but we always choose electric because we know the benefits of doing that. We have had some customers looking at trying to, they ask questions about sustainability, and we've done different studies for them with the help of Shibaura. We've gathered data from our machines, and we're able to satisfy their needs to keep us on their list of vendors and suppliers. So
okay, very good. Pascal?
So I will say there is a big gain of going electric. I will say maintenance-wise, we save a lot of maintenance time on those machines compared to hydraulic. I will say energy-wise too, they consume less power, and then they are less stressful on the infrastructure. We don't need to cool off the oil. Cycle time gain, I can tell you that I've seen a 20% benefits on cycle time from electric to hydraulic, in some even more very extensive case, 30% over. I think those are the big gain. There is another few more gain. It becomes very difficult to ensure a new hydraulic machine. And for those who don't know, ComEd offer $80 a ton for a new electric machine. So that make it a little bit, helpful. And like we said, once we go electric, we don't go back hydraulic.
And just a quick follow-up to that, Pascal, for benefit of the audience here, what is your expected payback in terms of the incremental costs versus the savings you just described?
So I will say the payback, we probably achieve a payback, the difference between hydraulic and electric. At Ideal Industry, we estimated about 5 to 6 years payback.
Okay, very good. Eric, from your perspective, what are some of the investment criteria you guys are considering when determining, a next investment in a new press?
Yeah, a lot of it came down to machine uptime versus downtime, whether that's related to preventative maintenance or the performance of the machine. Excuse me. So we noticed that the consistency of the performance of the machine, the ability to move jobs from one machine to the next without having to make a whole lot of adjustments or changes, really reduced the amount of scrap, the amount of downtime that we were experiencing. So even just comparing hydraulic to electric, there was a huge savings there just in our OEE and our ability to fully utilize that machine. And then over the years, obviously, the delta between hydraulic and electric pricing has come way down, and they're much closer. And we found to get a performing machine in a hydraulic that performed as well as an electric, we generally had to buy a higher end electric or a higher end hydraulic anyway, which offset the cost a little bit. So.
Very good. As a recovering automotive salesman, I have to ask, so from a commercial perspective, do you find yourself more competitive in your end markets due to these cost advantages over a servo hydraulic press?
I'm sure it's a contributor. I mean, it's hard to kind of break that out because we've, over the years done a lot of improvements in other areas as well. But yeah, for sure. And from a marketing aspect, it just shows better anyway when people come. One of our big marketing strategies is to get the potential customer into our shop, and they can walk through the plant, have a conversation, not have to raise their voice because it's nice and quiet, everything's clean, everything's running smooth and well, and it just shows really well. So it does kind of help from that aspect too.
I want to add up something too. The electric machine edge much better than the hydraulic machine. After 10, 20 years, there is less decline in their capability.
Very good. So let's transition into some more of the operational benefits. I think we touched on a few of these here, but I'll be very interested to hear. So from a throughput perspective, Pascal, you mentioned cycle time improvement. Overall, let's talk more about some of the operational improvements you're seeing within your facility with a high percentage of electric presses.
Well, I will say there is less noise. That's important too. They are less noisy. There is no oil leak on the floor. That's very nice. That's a big plus, for safety. Trying to think what else. I think they are very, very accurate too, much more than a hydraulic machine. And that's a big gain as well. I think, what I really like about those machines is the accuracy. It's just unbelievable. When I compare where we were 30 years ago with even the best hydraulic machine and when we are today with those electric machines, it's like it's a huge gap. So it's very precise, and that helps us. For mold repair, we don't break as many mold with electric than we do with hydraulic.
Very good. And Darryl, I'll ask you the same question. So I know previously or earlier today we talked about some of your product sets doing precision gears. You have a high concentration of electric presses. Describe some of the operational benefits you're seeing of running electric presses versus servo hydraulic.
Well, the maintenance costs are much lower. And as far as the repeatability, I'd have to agree with that. When we transfer a job from one machine to another from a USB stick, it's virtually no difference between the two machines, maybe 20 thousandths in the shot size that you have to adjust to get the same exact cushion that you had on the previous machine. So the repeatability within the machine is very good, and the repeatability from machine to machine is also very good. So.
Very good. Eric, anything additional to add?
Yeah, I think definitely as you mentioned, the noise level is a big thing, and it sounds like something kind of trivial, but when you can go from a plant that had to wear hearing protection through the whole floor as a requirement to now, it's very seldomly needed, only in specific applications.
You still have the grinders, though.
Well, yeah, even those have gotten quieter.
Not always.
But it makes a happier environment. The operators love it when they don't have to wear earplugs, and we love not having to monitor whether or not they're wearing their earplugs. But also to mention on the performance of it, over time, over 10, 12, 15 years, hydraulic machines, their performance will start to slip, and they're constant having to audit it, adjust it, replace parts, adjust valving, whatever it is. With an electric, we found that doing our performance evaluations, we don't have to do them anywhere near as frequently as we had to with hydraulic machines, which saves engineering time and maintenance time as well.
Yeah, and a question related to MRO. We talked about the savings due to uptime. From a training perspective, is there a learning curve for your maintenance teams working on an electric press versus a servo hydraulic? And I'll ask the whole panel that.
I don't think our maintenance team had much of an issue, but we're a pretty custom shop, so we have a lot of complexity and diversity of equipment. But no, I don't think there was much of a training gap or training or learning curve necessarily.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that, and Toshiba or Shibaura is very involved with, you get them on the phone, you can ask them questions. For us, P&A Plastics helps us out a lot when we have questions about the machines, and they're very easy to work on, so.
Very good.
And they require less maintenance than hydraulic machine also. I mean, maintenance, there is very little on those machines.
Very good. I think we're coming close to time here. Turn it over to any questions from the audience for the panel here. One over here.
Yeah, now you got the ball. Where's the ball? Come on, man, you got that arm. Okay, does that work? So one of the amazing things that I have, and I really would like Daryl to share this, is you always know, most of your process cooling. I got hydraulic cooling, air compressors, the mold cooling, and so that's a huge load on your plant, right? So Daryl, explain how many machines you have in your plant, how much, how many molds you have, and how much cooling you have, how much energy you put into running this entire plant.
Well, we have 35 molding machines. We have two 10-ton chillers that we run for our cooling water for all of those machines, but we only run one. One of them is 100% backup. So we're running one chiller with a 400-gallon tank, and it supplies the cooling water to all of our machines, including the two hydraulic machines. So the electrics use far less cooling, and with the closed systems on the thermolators, it keeps up very well.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You were talking about sustainability. Hey. I guess I have a question. We see Rivian and Tesla awarding business, but there seems to be no consideration to pushing this down on the molders that are doing the work for them. Why do you believe they're not leaning on them a little further and a little harder?
Now, that's a great question. So we'd say there's really two pockets of OEMs that are leading some of the sustainability charge. I'd say the German OEs, likely due to the requirements in Europe being much more stringent here than North America, and a lot of the sourcing decisions coming out of Europe. The second really isolated pocket would be GM. Now, to answer your question, why isn't Rivian and Tesla following suit? Is this a marketing gimmick per se? Is Elon happy with saving the world via his vehicles versus via his supply chain? That's kind of the million-dollar question. And I'd also add, though, is with these startups, what we've seen is their supply chain strategies are much different than the legacy OEs. So very immature processes. They're still working to develop, let alone set sustainability standards for their supply base. They're just looking to find willing suppliers that are accepting the volatility within their market. Good question, though. Any others? Very good. Well, thank you all. Thanks to the panel. Appreciate your time.